I think we are now recording. And I'd like to go ahead and welcome you to this first module describing the Next Generation Science Standards Balanced Assessment System. In this module, we're going to go ahead and discuss the formative, interim, and summative assessments that support the Delaware Science educational system and the resources that are available to you as you work to develop, implement, and analyze student results that are made available through the use of different types of assessments. So I guess one of the big questions that a lot of people have been asking or could ask is what exactly is a balanced assessment system in the first place, and where did that idea come from, or where did it become popularized? So generally speaking, the idea has been around for a very long time, but when the Every Student Succeeds Act was established in 2015, it described a balanced assessment system as a set of interconnected assessments that meet the needs of all educational stakeholders for the common purpose of improving education. So the idea is that a balanced assessment system provides accurate and timely information about student achievement and learning for individual students, teachers, schools, and district administrators, as well as local, state, and federal policymakers. So pretty much everybody involved in the educational system. And it encourages and supports learning by helping students and teachers see that their continued efforts are successful, and it offers actionable feedback in real time for everyone involved. So of course, a balanced assessment system indicates that there's more than one assessment in the mix. And so of course we have our accurate day-to-day classroom assessments, a quality curriculum and instructional decisions that are based on those daily classroom assessments, and a balanced high-quality standardized test at some point to kind of take a look at the overarching system and make sure that everything's working appropriately. So high-quality classroom assessments are really built in, and we all know this as teachers and people who've been in the classrooms, that the classroom assessments allow us to know what's going on with our kids. What is it that they know? Where are they struggling? And what kinds of decisions do we need to make on a daily basis to make sure that we're adapting to their needs? But at the end of the day, sometimes we need to top that off with a high-quality systemic monitoring tool that allows us to kind of take a step back and look at the system as a whole and determine whether or not the overarching educational program is meeting its goals and is really focused on the student learning that we think that it's focused on, and if it's being successful or not. And that's where that idea of standardized testing comes in. I think a lot of times there's a misconception that the standardized assessment is really focused on student learners and whether or not the students have met their goals, and it is, but on a large scale, the standardized assessments really allow us as policymakers and administrators to look at our system as a whole and make high level decisions about how to improve our systems and make sure that we're meeting their needs. So this graphic is one that is floating around out there, and I think it does a fairly good job of illustrating the balanced assessment system that we've put in place here in the state of Delaware. Although, if you notice, we did steal this graphic from Measured Progress, borrowed nicely. This particular graphic is color-coded, and you can see at the bottom that we have formative, benchmark, interim, and statewide assessments. And you'll also see that there's a student noted at the bottom with a graphic that illustrates the amount of assessment that a student should be exposed to for each one of these. So obviously, formative assessments, the purple strand, are the most commonly used resource and are ongoing throughout an entire school year. They're used daily, they're part of a learning partnership between the student and their teacher, And they really have two distinct purposes. They're used for checking for understanding in real time and for monitoring instructional effectiveness, again, in real time. The green assessment, the benchmark assessments, occur at multiple points throughout the year. And I like to tell people in the olden days, we called these quizzes. They're used for classroom and sometimes at the district level. They're often used to monitor instructional effectiveness, but they also tend to give us an idea of whether or not students are going to be performing well in the future. What's their learning trajectory? How is their growth? And it allows us as teachers to start making decisions about our program. Is what we're doing with students appropriate? Are they meeting their goals? Do we need to adjust and adapt? And have they met the proficiency target that we have brought them to at this point? And will they then make it to their proficiency target at the end of the chapter, the unit, the year, those kinds of things. So benchmark assessments are starting to become a little bit more summative in nature. And then of course, interim assessments, the blue ones, are somewhat more like what we used to consider exams, like mid-year and end-of-year exams. Interim assessments are usually given 2 or 3 times a year. They predict our future performance. Are we going to pass the year? Are we really seriously struggling? Are we not understanding major ideas? And it helps the teacher and administrators make serious decisions about the program. You know, if you have more than half of your class that's not passing, then you have to make some serious decisions about the instructional methods, the materials, the curriculum, and those sorts of things. And then, of course, you have your last item, which is shown in orange. That's the statewide assessment. That's the one that everybody worries about, but it's probably the one that gives you the least instructional assistance. The statewide assessment is used, of course, for accountability purposes. It does help predict future performance for students. So, for instance, in science, our statewide assessment is given in 5th grade. And the predictor that is there is whether or not students are going to be able to be productive and capable of performing in middle school science. So in 5th grade, it's a benchmark year. It's a gateway year, so we give the 5th grade assessment, and we are checking to see, have students learned enough science for them to be successful in middle school science? In 8th grade, we give the assessment, and what we're really asking is, have students learned enough science in middle school to be successful in high school science? And then, of course, in high school, we're asking the question of whether or not students have learned enough science to be successful in college or career/life in general. So formative and benchmark assessments are generally assessments for learning. They're the ones that teachers use in order to adapt and change curriculum and instruction for the student to make sure that they're going to be successful as they go through their curriculum. This is not necessarily news to people who are involved in education or in the classroom, but for parents, this is not always something that they see or understand, because we've always considered quizzes and tests to be things that we grade our students on. So understanding the formative and benchmark assessments may or may not be graded, but definitely provide information for teachers in order to adapt for their students is something that is beneficial for parents to understand. And then, of course, interim and statewide assessments are mostly for accountability purposes and let us know, have students met the mark? Are they reaching mastery and proficiency in the subject that we're teaching? So I've basically described all of this in the last slide. Formative assessment is that which we use during instruction. It's usually part of the instructional activity and data and evidence gathering for learning as we're teaching in the classroom with our students. These are ongoing, daily assessments, usually part of lesson plans, checking to see what our individual student needs are. There's often confusion with formative assessment as to whether or not it should be graded. Formative assessment, because it is an assessment for learning, really is not an accountability assessment or an assessment where you are marking student proficiency. You don't expect students to know what they've learned yet, so it's really not an appropriate time to provide them with an accountability score at this point. And then, of course, you have benchmark and interim assessments, and we've already discussed the differences between those. These two are very, very similar. One is given more regularly, such as at the end of a short unit or a chapter, very much like quizzes, and then interim assessments are given at larger chunks of time to check and see if students are meeting their goals toward proficiency for the year. Any questions on those three types of assessment? I mean, we spend a lot of time on that in school and such.
I don't have any.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I think that was just part of that. Okay, so at the Department of Education, for each of the different kinds of assessments that we use, and for each of the accountability assessments that we have at the state level, so that would be Smarter Balance for math and Smarter Balance for ELA, as well as social studies, and of course I'm here to talk about science, we have developed a balanced assessment system model for use in your districts that can be used to help illustrate some things that are available to you for professional learning, to use in PLCs, things that teachers can use to help support them in the classroom. And of course, these things come with hyperlinks that will take you to some resources that would be especially helpful. So this is the Science Balanced Assessment System model. It's available online at our website for state assessment. You'll see that we talk about the formative, interim, and summative assessments that are specific to the science assessment. And of course, it starts here with our formative assessments or embedded instructional assessments that we use throughout the year. And you'll notice that, of course, it's just describing all the things that I just talked about throughout the PowerPoint here. Of course, our formative assessments need to be aligned with state-adopted science standards, and any teachers who are unfamiliar with or need refreshers and information about the standards can come here. If you click on that link, of course, it takes you directly to the DOE website, to the Next Generation Science Standards and information about that. So, of course, that brings you to this page, which illustrates for you the specific standards that are available from grade to grade. I'm taking you to the 5th grade standards. This page illustrates for teachers the performance expectations only. So this is the performance expectation for developing a model to describe that matter is made of particles too small to be seen. That is the performance expectation. There is a practice, a cross-cutting concept, and a disciplinary core idea that is built into that. And to understand that and to see it in more detail, one may want to go to the, here we go, the Next Generation Science website, which is also available on our webpage. And teachers can see that in more detail here. So you notice that on the DOE website, it outlines just what standards are you responsible for in 5th grade. When you go to the Next Generation Science Standards webpage, it gives much more detail for what the standard is, what that standard means, what the assessment boundary is for that standard, and then each of the 3 dimensions for that standard. So what exactly does that particular science and engineering practice look like? What does the disciplinary core idea related to that standard look like? And what are the cross-cutting concepts that are related to that standard? So a teacher who's trying to meet the standard would come to this particular page and look to see what are the expectations aligned to the standard, and that would give them a little bit more detail and background on that information. But in case a teacher was curious about that whole idea about, what's the difference between a formative assessment and benchmark assessment? How do I even write one of these things? What does it look like to use 3 dimensions in a question in the first place? One can click right here on this formative link, and it'll take them to the STEM teaching tools, which is an amazing website and resource for teachers. You'll notice that this provides information about what formative assessment is, especially with the information regarding next generation science standards. It goes through this what we call the ESRU cycle, or the eliciting the response, looking for student responses, recognizing what that response means, and then how to go through and use that response to adapt instruction. It talks about gathering, interpreting, and acting upon information that's used in the classroom. So it actually uses formative assessment in much the same way that teachers are intended to develop pedagogy for the classroom in a next generation science framework. So it's a very useful one-pager, but there are also more resources available to teachers who come to this STEM teaching tools module. If you go to the PD modules link that is here, you'll see that there are multiple sessions on formative assessment that are available to teachers and professional learning communities that are self-paced and can be used to go through different activities, including how to build formative assessments, how to assess using 3-dimensional learning, making science instruction compelling using formative assessment as part of the instructional tools. So all of these things are available to your teachers using this website. And I guarantee that this is a high quality, highly rigorous, and well-researched resource for you. The people who built this website and all of its resources were among the same folks who wrote the next generation science standards and are continuing to build resources that are fully aligned to the theoretical framework that went behind that. So this is a solid resource for your teachers. If you have any questions, you can contact me or Tanya Mead here at the Department of Education to help you through that. At the same time, there are, again, still on that same website, more one-pagers. If you don't want to dig into the 60 or 70-minute presentations and videos that are available to you, there are these practice briefs. This is the one that I just showed you. Here's one for how teachers can develop formative assessments that fit a 3-dimensional view. This is just a one-pager. This is a one-pager. Each one of these practice briefs are just descriptions of how teachers can do certain things that are related to assessment in next generation science standards. Again, research-based from the National Science Foundation. Plenty of information for teachers aligned to the next generation science standards. So, and again, each one of these practice briefs could be part of a professional learning community meeting all by themselves. So if you were to click on this one, teachers could read through this and then have plenty of time to discuss this during a PLC and have focused conversations that they could use information from that focused conversation with their students in the classroom thereafter. So very productive materials that teachers can use with regard to this. At the same time, if they're looking for materials, this is all well and good. I understand this. It makes sense. I know what formative assessment is already. I just want stuff. Teachers can go here to the Schoology group. Here's the code for the Schoology group. I'm going to click on this real quick just to get back to the internet. And at the Schoology group, we have embedded classroom assessments in the resources section for your teachers at elementary, middle, and high school. So your teachers have access to materials that students can use in the classroom. These are less formative and probably more likely benchmark assessments because these are things that students would be able to answer after they've had instruction. but it is a bank. Unfortunately, this is taking a while to, there we go, taking a while to open, but it does provide you with a bank of materials, information, questions, all aligned to the standards, vetted by teachers and reviewed several times over. And then the metadata form offers out the rubric and all of the alignment and information that goes along with it. So again, there's some more information. How to use them is available on all of the online web pages and whatnot. And then what kinds of resources can I use are available here in the Schoology site. So that gives you something to use that provides you with some concrete resources for your teachers. At the same time, just in case you thought we were coming to an end on all the wonderful toys you could play with when it comes to assessment, in the interim section, you'll notice that we have end-of-unit assessments that have been developed by teachers and our vendor, WestEd, that are aligned to the next generation science standards. There are 3 end-of-unit assessments being built for every grade level, 3rd grade through high school. So they're aligned to the standards. They are modeled after the summative state assessment in terms of the types of items that students will see. They're item clusters that are built related to the standards. And they do provide teachers with actionable feedback that they can use during the school year, as opposed to waiting until the end of the school year to find information that they could only put into action with a new group of students. These end-of-unit assessments are meant to assist with monitoring students during the school year, help identify strengths and weaknesses, especially in terms of the practices, even if teachers weren't able necessarily to go back and reteach specific content, they could definitely continue to work on specific practices throughout the year. And while it is somewhat high stakes in that teachers can use this to be used as a course grade, because you can use these to be used as a grade in the classroom. They are still intended to be used voluntarily in the classroom with your district. They are not something to be used at the state level. We do not collect them here at the Department of Education. To show you, these are available in Performance Plus. This is not a hyperlink, but they are available in Performance Plus. So if anyone has access to Performance Plus, they can go and receive those. I just want to very quickly show you how to get to those. If you have access to Performance Plus and you click on the little sheet of paper that says Assessments, if you go to any grade level that is between 3rd grade and high school, we're going to go to 5th grade real quick, and then pick on Science. Show assessments. You'll see that we have an end of unit EOU for stars in the solar system. We also have an end of unit for structure and properties of matter. So I'm going to click on that really quickly. And it's going to take forever to load because I have 7 million windows up here. And I'm not sure it even did load. These assessments are available to you and can be opened at your leisure. There's another one here for stars in the solar system. There are 2 currently available for 5th grade. And we actually have 1 available. There you go. It timed out on me. We have 2 available in 5th grade, and we have several available at each of the elementary grade levels. For summative assessments, that's the one that everybody took live for the first time last year. Scores will be available to you anytime in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We'll be looking over all of that information so that we can notice the evaluation of student learning at those transitional years. So again, as I said before, grade 5 is a gateway year between elementary and middle school. So the question that we're asking there is, have students learned enough in elementary school to be prepared for middle school science? In 8th grade, have students been prepared for high school science? And in high school science, are they prepared for college, career, and life? This is a task-based assessment, and if you click on this hyperlink, it will take you to the page that I already have open here. And most of you have probably seen this assessment at least a few times, where students come in and they have multiple bits of information to the left, which is a stimulus, sometimes a simulation, sometimes it's information, lots of data and information that students wade through and then answer three-dimensional questions on the right-hand side. So this is the format that they see for their state summative assessment. And that presents for you our science balanced assessment model and all the resources that are aligned to it. Altogether, we use that balanced assessment system to allow our educators to align their goals for instructional decision-making, teaching, and student learning for ongoing feedback that offers teachers, students, and parents an opportunity for open and productive discussion and adaptation in an effort to improve the learning process. Do you have any questions at this point?
I do not. This has been very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We only have one or two more slides. This picture right here is intended to kind of illustrate how all of this kind of fits together in a year. So you'll see here how you have your classroom formative assessments. We're normally just going through all day long, giving our formatives, and then we have our end of unit assessments built in through the year. And that would be going on from third grade through fifth grade. So the teachers, parents, and students all know what's going on, how things are going, what the progress of students are. They're not confused. They're not, surprised. There's nothing that they're not expecting. And then by the time they have their fifth grade state summative assessment, everybody would be fairly well aware of how a student would be performing. And then, of course, that would happen again, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then between 9th and 10th grade. So it just illustrates how it provides this goal-oriented, structured approach to education that allows for productive feedback for the student, allows for that decision-making with instructional practice and curriculum alignment all together by having all that instructional goal-oriented feedback approach throughout the educational process. Okay, and that's kind of what this slide is talking about. Making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of the idea of interconnected assessments that are used in the state of Delaware and how we are working to implement them to meet the needs of our educational stakeholders. So this is something that we're doing not just in science, which is of course what I was speaking of today, but also in social studies, in mathematics, and in ELA. So you should be noticing that we have balanced approaches in all of our core subject areas so that there's productive feedback and availability of data processing and conversations for PLCs and for teachers that are aligned to the ultimate goals of the educational process that are standards-based and provide for productive conversation and feedback throughout the school year. And if there's any way that any of us here at the Department of Education, especially here in the Office of Assessment or in the Office of Curriculum and Instruction, can be of assistance in helping to facilitate those conversations, please, please, please just let us know. So this was the first of 3 webinars that are aligned to this conversation about our balanced assessment system, especially in science. The next one will be on December 17th, and the last one will be in January on the 14th. Quickly give you an idea. The first one, of course, today was just an introduction to what exactly a balanced assessment system is, what the research sources are to help support that, and ways that we here at the department can help assist you. The next webinar will be focused on providing participants with an understanding of the types of reports available for each of the assessments. So especially in science, that might be something you're interested in, because it'll probably be among the first times that we'll be looking at some of those science reports and talking about the data and what's available and what the data is telling us, and also discussing what resources are available to help parents, students, and teachers with regard to the specific reports that come out aligned to the summative assessment in science. And then, of course, the third webinar is going to be a focus on how to actually use assessment information tied to curriculum and instruction, and how to have those data-focused conversations that can help increase and improve student learning, and talk about that what next when it comes to assessment and instruction. So when it comes to LEAs and assessment literacy and balanced assessment courses, if anyone's interested, there's an overarching balanced assessment course listed here, 28426, section 52-144. A lot of the information that I shared in this presentation is covered in that with a little bit more detail. So anyone who might be interested, if you have stakeholders, parents, administrators, I don't know, interested public partners who may be interested in the information, you can share that. And also Fundamentals of Assessment Literacy is available here. And finally, if you have any questions whatsoever, take a quick screenshot of this page. Feel free to contact any one of us with information or for information on any of these assessments or anything that has anything to do with these subjects or assessments, and we will be glad to get back to you quickly. And at any time that you might want professional development, conversations, visits, any of those sorts of things, please give us a call. We're happy to help. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If everything is good, all three of you are welcome to continue with your day. And I'll be happy to talk to you again in a month. Yeah.
April, this was great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Take care, everyone.
Bye.